let me tell you what I was trying to do in it. Ernie mentioned the prize, and I finished the prize. It was just a few days, actually, after Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. And I wrote then, as the kind of final words, how our times have been transformed by the modern and mesmerizing alchemy of petroleum. Ours truly remains the age of oil. Well, that was the 20th century. We're now in the 21st century. And it's stunning when you just think how much has changed. For many people in this room, dominating fact of their lives was the Soviet Union. For some people in this room, they won't remember the Soviet Union. There is no Soviet Union. It's also interesting to me that China just had a few sentences really in the prize, and yet in the quest, it's the only country that gets 2 chapters of its own. Climate change, although it was an issue and concern to a limited number of people, it hardly had political traction, very different from today. And shale gas, I guess no one had heard of shale gas, or if it had any name, it was known as uneconomic gas, and it's just never going to be exploited. Prices. 2004, as late as 2004, key oil ministers were saying oil's $20 a barrel, and our great fear is it's going to collapse, and that there's no floor to it. We in 4 years went from $20 to $147.27 back to $30. And then, of course, what's unfolded this year, Fukushima. If we were meeting on March 10th, we probably would have been talking about the nuclear renaissance. On March 12th, one wasn't. And in terms of the Arab Spring, which is now, some call it the Arab Winter, but the really hard questions now of power, and it's gone beyond Twitter and Facebook and Google to who's going to control the government, who's going to control the judiciary and the military and all those things. So also what I wanted to do was cover the whole energy spectrum, the central role of natural gas, challenges of electric power, the question of how climate change went from something that was of interest to a few scientists to being really a dominating political issue. And I found myself going back to the Alps in the 1770s to begin that story, and then renewables and how they all fit in the mix. So what I was trying to do, which I guess relates to the work of the Energy Initiative, is talk about how our energy world's come about, how it's evolving, and where it will go from here. As I said, like any story, it has great characters in it, and I just thought I'd share a couple of them because I find them so interesting. Some may know, chemists may know, the name Ari Hagen-Smit, a chemistry professor at Caltech, a great expert. He deciphered the taste, where the chemistry of the taste of onions, garlic, and wine came from. He also identified the active ingredient in marijuana, but that was not his life's work. He was really fascinated by pineapples and understanding the taste of pineapples. He was working on that in his lab at Caltech in 1948 and decided to go outside for a breath of fresh air. He walked outside. Maybe he went out for a smoke, I don't know. But and instead of this wonderful California sunshine, found himself enveloped what he called that stinking cloud of smog. He said, I'm a chemist. I can solve it. I can figure it out, because there's a huge argument. What caused smog? Was it caused by the 1.5 million backyard incinerators in Los Angeles? Huge subject of debate. He said he figured out on the first nickel that it came from, of course, out of automobile engines primarily. He then Ronald Reagan then signed legislation to create the California Air Resources Board, who became the first chairman, but Ari Hagen-Smit, and then started the process where to clean up the air, and in 1990, the first decision to have zero-emission vehicles, which was redone. So you can kind of draw a straight line from 1948 and Ari Hagen-Smit to the electric cars that are appearing on our roads. Another figure in the book, geopolitical figure, is Haidar Aliyev, who was a Soviet man, a KGB general, party secretary of Azerbaijan, member of the Soviet Politburo, and then he has a tremendous fight with Mikhail Gorbachev, gets thrown out, sent back to Azerbaijan, and his career is over, and then the Soviet Union breaks down. He becomes the president of Azerbaijan, and he did more than anybody else to reconnect the Caspian, the resources of Central Asia, to the rest of the world. We know today a lot of students are having trouble getting jobs as they're graduating, and this young man was having considerable difficulty. He had a very good degree in science, but he could not get a job. He took up tutoring, didn't get many customers, offered free samples for his tutoring, didn't get many customers. His situation was so bad that his father wrote a letter to a chemistry professor and said, my son grows, can you help him find a job? He grows more and more unhappy day by day. He feels his career has been derailed. That, of course, was Albert Einstein. So he did get his job in Bern in the patent office, as you all know, and didn't have much to do, and so wrote 5 amazing papers in the summer of 1905, one of them on photoelectricity, for which he received the Nobel Prize. And then you realize it took half a century to actually put that in first use, and it was in the space race with the Soviet Union. And here we are today, 106 years later, and still the question, in fact, I think it's one of the top research projects for the Energy Initiative to assess where photovoltaics and solar energy goes from here, kind of proving that long lead times in the energy field.